Hello everyone. Today we are going to discuss a disaster information management model and its development process. I have with me the creator of the model. Let's get started. First of all, could you please briefly introduce yourself?
Thank you for inviting me. I'm Vittorio Nespeka. I'm a postdoc at the University of Amsterdam Computational Science Lab. And previously, during this work, I was actually at the TU Delft, also in the Netherlands. My work focuses on crisis and information management. This particular model and other models I developed to study how we can optimize the way we share information and manage information collectively in crisis.
Let's talk about the main purpose of your model. Can you explain what it is designed to do?
Yes, thank you. So the model itself had the specific purpose was to capture our understanding of a particular case, which was the case study of Jakarta, and specifically the case study of the Marunda community of North Jakarta. And what we wanted to do is capture what we find with interviews. So it was a qualitative research process in which we interviewed a lot of different actors from local communities, professional response organization, national and international NGOs that are operate in disaster response to sort of understand how they share information within their groups and organizations, but also across, most importantly, across their groups. And we wanted to translate that into a model to sort of see how the overall system manages to get the information needed to those who need it on time. And this is exactly what we measure in our model through a series of indicators.
Thank you, very interesting. So, moving on, what were the main challenges you faced while developing this model?
Well, first of all, I think it was a methodological challenge because while there are a lot of approaches for translating qualitative data, interviews, documents, and so forth into agent-based models, there isn't one straightforward way to do it. So therefore, finding a sort of systematic, transparent, and reproducible way of doing it was a bit of a challenge that eventually led to some research publication where actually this model is also discussed and introduced. So that was one of the biggest challenge, I would say. And for example, capturing things like what kind of information sharing behaviors these agents carry out, and how do we translate that into behavioral rules. Things like if I don't know about particular bits of information that I need, I will not go and look for it. That's a classical example of the things that we learned through interviews and then translated into rules in our model.
Let's talk about the findings of your work. What are the main
Yeah.
insights based on the analysis of this model?
So the analysis was very insightful and also with a lot of follow-ups that we're still working on. I would say the main thing is that, first of all, as a introduction, I have to say that we have different groups, like I already briefly mentioned. We have communities on one hand, the local communities that are exposed to flooding. So that's the disaster we're looking at. And then we have a bunch of different actors that we call professional responders that can be governmental and non-governmental. What we observed is when these groups, they both have direct access to some of the information needed by the other group. And we look at how well each of them does. Actually, communities are much better informed overall, not just because they are exposed to the disaster, they know what's happening because of the disaster, but also they also manage to get the information from the other side, from the professional, better than the professional do. So especially at the beginning of the disaster, communities have a better overall picture of what is going on. And that means that, at least in terms of information, they are in a better position to respond.
Hmm. Very interesting.
Another finding that we found, as I mentioned, the behavioral rule we implemented from the interviews is that basically, of course, it is harder to get information on time to people when they are not aware that they need that information. For example, if there is a flood coming and say that it's a second flood wave, after a few hours or maybe a day before the previous one, nobody expected that. And then that's a lot harder to get to people because people are not actively looking for such a bit of information.
Hmm.
So we need targeted solutions for that.
Thank you. So, since you have made your model available via comsys.net, what were the main challenges in making your model accessible to others using this website?
Well, first of all, I have to say that it's great that there is such a platform, and that it's already starting to be sort of ingrained in some of the journals and the guide for the authors. Some incentives are there. Uh, well, first challenge, perhaps the easiest to spot, is that it takes some learning, right? You have to learn a bit what are the possibilities, also around the double blind review process. Is it gonna be visible who I am? So you need to to figure all of that out, right? And that it helped me a lot that there were some events organized by the European Social Simulation Association, in which also COMSES and particularly Marco Jansen was presenting this platform and the procedures. So that helped a lot also to motivate me to publish the work there. And also there are incentives, right? The JAS, for example, the journal where we published that methodological article with this model, has quite strong policy. It's quite strongly advises and suggests that you make your model available. Sometimes to reap the benefit of publishing the model can be tricky. So that's another challenge, I have to say. For example, these badges that are made available, or the DOI that you can get when the code is peer reviewed, which is fantastic that you have such a peer review process, by the way. I think that's great. Uh, it didn't really work out in the sense that it didn't really appear automatically on Google Scholar, for example. Or I didn't know that I had to share the badge link with the journal so that the badge would appear in the article. Okay, these are details, right? But like, it's nice to have, and it was a bit of a learning process, which I think could be a bit clearer. But in that case, it depends on the journal, of course, not really on COMSES. But yeah, so these are a bit the struggles that I encountered. So second time over, I think everything will be a bit smoother.
Yeah, exactly. So, you mentioned there are follow-up studies. So, what are these studies planned for for more development of this model?
The purpose of the model was really to sort of describe and capture a bit what we could observe in one case study. What we did after that, with some of the things that we learned through pure qualitatively analyzing the data that we collected through interviews, is that as observed also for other disasters, there are some people that end up being some kind of integrators, information exchange hubs among these different groups. And what we wanted to do is to study and analyze the processes that lead to such an emergence and how effectively they manage to convey information across different groups when there's such a crisis. And so what we've done, we've abstracted and simplified some of the very descriptive features of the model, including, geospatial accuracy of the particular area that we were focusing on. We had in the model social media. People could share information through social media. We stripped all that and it's just social networks. But we've added, for example, reinforcement learning algorithm so that people learn which among their contacts tend to provide information of the highest quality, and sort of study if that leads to the emergence of these actors that are key in facilitating intergroup information exchange.
Thank you for your valuable insights about this interesting model.
Thank you for having me.